everyone, I'm Kevin Nelson. Here's a look at what's going on this week in the news. We begin with news from the Vatican. The Pope made a pastoral visit to Milan this past weekend, beginning his journey on the outskirts of the city at the White Houses, a housing development for the poor built in the 1970s. Among the families welcoming the Pope into their apartments was an 82-year-old man whose wife was in the hospital and a Muslim family from Morocco. Rome Reports has more from Milan.
Pope Francis did not spend even a full 12 hours in Milan. It was a brief but intense trip that began here in the White Houses, a complex of buildings from the 70s with 477 houses. They are small houses that now inhabit a mix of elderly people and immigrants of different nationalities. In Milan, the cradle of luxury and fashion, Pope Francis chose this popular neighborhood to visit. The neighbors showed them their joy to see him arrive in the Pope-mobile. Pope Francis visited two of the apartments. He was received in the house of this Muslim family. Karem and his wife Hanen and their 3 children demonstrated all their hospitality and made several gifts for the Pope. After the corresponding official photos and the gifts that the Pope gave them, he could not miss out on the traditional selfie. Pope Francis reached the house of the Onetta family as he crossed through one of the corridors, full of cheers and signs of affection for him. Nucio waited for him, but Adele, his wife, could not receive him at her house because she was hospitalized. However, this was not enough to stop a blessing from the Pope.
Signora Adele, buongiorno. Come sta? Come si sente? Non troppo bene, ma gli acciacchi, eh? Ma bisogna ridersi dagli acciacchi e andare avanti, eh? Ma che il Signore... Ecco. E offrirgli il Signore i dolori, eh? Io gli do la benedizione, eh? Gli do la benedizione, eh? Ti benedica Dio Onnipotente, il Padre, il Figlio e lo Spirito Santo.
The people in the neighborhood gave Pope Francis a handmade white stole. He said the fact that the stole is homemade makes it much more precious and is a reminder that the Christian priest is chosen from the people and is at the service of the people. The Pope said his priesthood, like that of their pastor and the other priests who work there, is a gift of Christ, but one sown by them, by the people, with their faith, their struggles, their prayers, and their tears. The Pope's trip also took him to Milan's Gothic Cathedral, where he met with priests and religious and answered some of their questions. He also traveled to the city's historic prison and had lunch with the inmates. Rome Reports was there for that encounter.
The inmates at the St. Vittore jail excitedly recall that the Pope made them forget their fate, even if only for a few minutes. Pope Francis greeted each of them one by one and told them that he sees them as brothers. These words were transmitted into emotions that were felt throughout. The prisoners received the Pope with applause. A lot of applause. Even still, there was more applause. So much so that Pope Francis, before sitting at the table to eat, said this.
Io potrei dire tanti applausi, ma non ci danno da mangiare.
Pope also celebrated an afternoon mass for the Feast of the Annunciation in Milan's Monza Park. Tens of thousands were on hand for this special mass. The Pope ended his day-long visit to Milan by participating in an expanded version of the Archdiocese's annual encounter for preteens preparing for confirmation. An estimated 78,000 people filled the city's famed San Siro soccer stadium. The Archdiocese expects to confirm about 45,000 young people this year. In news from around the country, the 7-member House Health Committee of the Hawaii Legislature unanimously voted to defer a bill from legalizing physician-assisted suicide. The bill would have allowed a terminally ill adult Hawaii resident with 6 months or less to live to request a prescription for a lethal dose of medication to be self-administered to end his or her life. The House Committee was concerned about the lack of details, safeguards protecting the vulnerable, and what training physicians would have about prescribing lethal drugs to patients. The Catholic Church in Hawaii actively opposed the bill and organized a statewide petition collecting thousands of signatures. Honolulu Bishop Larry Silva expressed concern that legal-assisted suicide would create a culture of euthanasia and elder abuse. And finally in the news, the University of Notre Dame recently announced that Jesuit Father Greg Boyle would be receiving the university's Laetare medal during commencement ceremonies on May 21st. Father Boyle is the founder and executive director of Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles, which was started in 1988 in response to gang violence and the toll it was taking on young people in the community. Father Boyle, along with members of Mission Dolores Parish in East Los Angeles and community leaders, developed social enterprises and alternative opportunities for young people. Homeboy Industries has grown to become a worldwide gang intervention, rehabilitation, and re-entry program, annually working with 15,000 men and women. The Laetare Medal was established in 1883. It's given annually to a Catholic whose genius has ennobled the arts and sciences, illustrates the ideals of the Church, and enriched the heritage of humanity. Well, that's all the information we have for you this time. I'm Kevin Nelson. Don't forget, you can keep up to date on Catholic news throughout the week with Catholic Newsbreak right here on the Catholic TV network.